Hello again. One of the things I have observed time and again in this country is the role of white activists in stirring up mischief between ethnic minorities and the rest of society. I used to see this 40 or 50 years ago with the National Front. Marches and demonstrations by that group, which degenerated into riots, were always instigated by white left-wing troublemakers rather than by members of any ethnic minority. Most of the National Front marches would have passed off peacefully had it not been for the white members of groups such as the Socialist Workers' Party and so on, who turned out in force to throw bottles and provoke violence. Sometimes this tactic backfired and one of them would end up getting killed. We saw this at Red Lion Square in 1974 with Kevin Gately, and then 5 years later with Blair Peach in Southall. Always the picture was the same. A peaceful march by the National Front, followed by rioting and disorder precipitated by left-wing white people. This is still pretty much the case today. One only needs to see the crowds in Oxford who gathered to demand that roads must fall. Rather than being concerned about the real interests of black people today, these white liberals were obsessed with the statue of Cecil Rhodes. If you look at a photograph taken of those events, you'll be hard-pressed to find any black people. This is a white game. I'm sure that viewers would have noticed that when the statue of John Colston was pulled down and pitched into the harbour a couple of years ago, this was done by white people worried about the slave trade rather than black people. This tendency for white people in Britain to be the ones orchestrating protests about racism is, as I say, a recurring theme. It invariably involves left-wing groups such as the Socialist Workers' Party, and typically acts of violence ranging from setting fire to things to attacks on police officers are initiated by these people as part of an overall plan. I was thinking about this the other day when a demonstration was held in the East London district of Hackney about the case of a black schoolgirl who was searched by the police. This protest took place at Stoke Newington police station, and the thumbnail to this video shows the scene. In the description to this video I give a link to a news item so that viewers may see the picture for themselves there. It shows about 45 people outside the police station protesting about this black girl, and yet I can only count 6 black people in the crowd. In other words, only about a seventh of those making a fuss about this business and talking about Black Lives Matter and police racism against black people are actually black. The signs being waved about are all produced by the Socialist Workers' Party. In short, this is not a demonstration by black people at all about their concerns. It is something got up by white left-wingers. This is pretty much par for the course. Most activism of this kind, whatever the ostensible cause it supports, is organised by white left-wingers, many of whom are middle class. It's the same whether you are talking about protests against racism or global warming, refugees, gay rights, transsexualism. Left-wing white people are at the back of it mostly. In fact, if you took left-wing white people out of the equation, you would get a much clearer idea of what ordinary people really care about, rather than what they are persuaded that they should care about. I don't think this is a conspiracy, but I'm always slightly suspicious to see the same faces and same organisations being in the vanguard for so many different causes. Either these are people who care an awful lot about many things, or they're organising disruptive and sometimes violent protests as part of some wider plan.